Hi, my name is James Orange, and I hope that this video finds you safe and well. I'm speaking to you from my house in La Coruña, here in Spain, on the west coast of Spain. And this is a Culture Byte video about Scotland, and it forms part of an online series of videos on a variety of topics from OUP. This video is designed for students with approximately a B1 level of English, but it can be used with other ages and levels as well. And that's up to your teacher. And remember that as this is a video, you can also pause it when you like or repeat sections when you need to. Okay, well, let's get started. Okay, so on this map, what colour is Scotland? Have a look. And it is the blue or purple, depending on your eyes. And Wales is which colour? It's red, of course. Wales is red. And green represents which country? This is Ireland. And the yellow is Northern Ireland. Now, moving on to capital cities. London obviously is the capital of England. What's the capital of Wales? Cardiff. And the capital of Ireland over here is Dublin. Capital of Northern Ireland is Belfast. And the capital of Scotland is, of course, Edinburgh. Right, and from this map, you can see that Scotland divides roughly into three regions. You've got the Highlands in dark green. You've got the Lowlands in light green. And remember that about 75% of the population live in the Lowlands. That's where all the biggest cities are as well. And then you've also got the islands, especially on the west coast, but also including the Hebrides, but also with the Orkneys in the north and the Shetlands a lot further north. In fact, the Shetlands are about 500 kilometres from the Scottish mainland, about 12 hours by boat. And remember, we've got Edinburgh, we've got Glasgow, the largest city in Scotland, and up the east coast, we've got Aberdeen. Remember that we've got the Isle of Skye on the west coast, and that's about a 5-hour drive from Edinburgh because there are no big motorways going up north. They're small roads, and on the way you pass through Glencoe. A glen is Scottish for a valley, and this is perhaps one of the most famous valleys in Scotland. It's Glencoe, which is a very majestic valley that is like a door to the Highlands. And we're looking north. You can see the road at the bottom there. Glencoe was also the scene of a terrible massacre that the English committed against the MacDonald clan when they killed many members of the clan. And as you travel north on your way to Skye, you will pass this famous castle. It's called Ilion, and it's the most photographed castle in Scotland. And it's appeared in many films and series about Scotland as well, including Outlander. So now we've arrived at the Isle of Skye, and as you can see, it's incredibly beautiful. It's connected to the Scottish mainland by bridge. It's famous for its dramatic mountains, its incredible coast, and very beautiful fishing villages, and it has fantastic sunrises and sunsets. Portree is its largest town. There are very few roads, lots of tourists in the summer, and very changeable weather. But as you can see, it is utterly beautiful and very mysterious. Now, if we travel east from Skye, we'll arrive at Loch Ness. Loch Ness is a really long lake in Scotland. It's about 38 kilometres long and very deep. It's 180 metres deep. Obviously, it's famous for its monster, Nessie. Nessie first made headlines in the newspapers in 1933 when a Londoner reported seeing a dragon or a prehistoric animal. And after that, there were more sightings of this monster, and photos soon appeared in the newspapers as well. Some people believe that this is a prehistoric animal. However, according to a paleontologist called Neil Clark, Nessie could be an elephant swimming in the loch. In the 1930s, there were many travelling circuses in Scotland who, between shows, would sometimes bring their elephants to play in the lakes. So perhaps these early reports were reports of elephants. Who knows? And some people have argued that Nessie is in fact just a piece of wood, a fallen tree, which wood, when it's underwater, will decompose and sometimes release little bubbles. And if this is near the surface, it could look like an animal under the water. And all the photos of Nessie proved to be fakes, and she's never been filmed. So it seems that she doesn't exist. Or does she? Bad weather is normal in Scotland, and it rains on more than 250 days a year in the Highlands, and on about 175 days a year in other parts of Scotland. That's a lot of rain. And as the Scots say, at least the rain is warmer in the summer. The problem with the summer is that you also get midges. And midges feed on the flower nectar, particularly in the heather in the mountains, but they're also attracted to mammals because of the CO2, the body heat, and particularly the smells that we make. Female midges are the ones that bite because they need the protein from our blood to produce eggs. And the bites really itch. They're as bad as mosquitoes, and there are lots of them. And so in Scotland, in the summer especially, they publish a lot of maps showing you where the worst places are for these midges, for these little insects. But midges haven't been the only invaders in Scotland over the years. And as you can see in Scottish history, many different people have invaded Scotland. So can you put these pictures in chronological order? Which were the first people, do you think, to arrive in Scotland? Remember, you can pause the video while you think. The Celts were in Scotland for about 400 years before they were pushed back by the expansion of Rome. The Romans occupied Scotland for quite a short time in the 1st century. Then they retreated and built Hadrian's Wall to protect the Roman Empire's northern border. The next people were the Vikings. Their attacks on the mainland were largely unsuccessful, but they did settle in some of the northern Scottish islands like the Shetlands and the Orkneys in the early 9th century. And you'll find that many Scots have ancestors from Scandinavia, which also had an influence on the language. In fact, the word for kilt comes from the verb cachta, which is a Norse word. Okay, and the final people to arrive were the English, who came attacking Scotland under the King Edward I, who fought the Scots in the wars of Scottish independence in the late 13th and 14th centuries. William Wallace was a Scottish leader during the wars of Scottish independence, and after winning a couple of famous battles against King Edward, he was defeated at the Battle of Falkirk in July 1298. And 7 years later, Wallace was captured near Glasgow, and he was taken to London, where he was hung, drawn, and quartered for high treason. This was a terrible medieval execution, which meant that Wallace was stripped naked, dragged through the city by horse. He was then strangled by hanging, but then released before he died. He then had his insides taken out and burnt before him, and then he was beheaded and cut into 4 parts. His head was placed on a pike on London Bridge, and his arms and legs were displayed separately in 4 different cities, in Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling, and Aberdeen. And this is the monument to William Wallace, which is near Stirling. Scotland eventually became a member of the United Kingdom after James VI, the Stuart King of Scotland, also inherited the throne of England in 1603. The 2 countries remained independent from each other until the Act of Union in 1707, which then merged the 2 countries into a new state, which was the Kingdom of Great Britain. And you can see how the flags of the different countries were combined to make the Union Jack here. Okay, let's look at some Scottish people. All of these famous people were Scottish except one. Who are these Scottish people? The first one is a Nobel Prize winning physicist who discovered penicillin. Who's that? It is, of course, Alexander Fleming. The second is the author of famous fantasy series of books set in a school called Hogwarts. This is, of course, J.K. Rowling. Okay, and the next is an actress who played the White Queen in the Narnia films and looks actually quite similar to the actress who played Brienne of Tarth in the Game of Thrones. This is an actress called Tilda Swinton. And the final one is the famous but now retired manager of Manchester United. Who's that? It is, of course, Alex Ferguson. So we have Alexander Fleming, J.K. Rowling, Tilda Swinton, and Alex Ferguson. And all of these people are Scottish except one. Who is the odd one out? Well, it's actually J.K. Rowling, who is English, although she did write the first and last Harry Potter books in Scotland. Okay, let's move now to Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland. As you can see, this is the castle, which is perched on a volcanic rock in the center of the city. And you can get a very good view of the city from Arthur's Seat, which is a hill to the south of the city. And from this hill, we can see the castle here. And actually, you can see that the castle is prepared for the tattoo because it's got a whole lot of seating around the castle for the festival. From the castle, we can look down to the sea at the bottom, down the Royal Mile, which is a 3-kilometre road that leads down from the castle down to Holyrood House, which is the palace or the official residence of the Queen in Scotland. Next to the palace is the Scottish Parliament, which was designed by the architect Enric Miralles, who said that this building was growing out of the land, and it's made of glass, wood, stone, and metal. It's very beautiful. Now, the Edinburgh Festival describes the many arts and cultural festivals that take place each summer, mostly in August. It started in 1947 to showcase the human spirit after the Second World War. Actually, in 1947, there was also some theatre companies who couldn't get into the first festival, and they organised their own theatre event on the fringe or on the edge of the main event. And this was called the Fringe. This was the beginning of the Fringe, which is still separate from the main festival, but it's now much, much bigger than the festival itself. In 2017, for example, there were 3,400 different shows, comedy, music, theatre, you name it. And they occupy over 300 venues all over the city, from churches to town halls to university buildings. Scotland is also famous for its kilts, which are the dresses worn by men. And these date from the 16th century, and the name comes from the Norse or Viking word. And Scottish men wear these kilts basically for formal occasions like weddings. The design of the kilt is called a tartan, and there are well over 4,000 registered tartan designs. Tartan is a woven cloth that's made of two parts, a warp, which is the vertical stripes, and a weft, which are the horizontal stripes. And traditionally, the design and colour of your kilt comes from your family name. And these days, you can go to the House of Tartan website online, and you can find the tartan that's associated with your name if you're Scottish. For example, my mother's maiden name, the surname she had before she got married, was Walker, which is a Scottish name. And so you can go online, and as you can see, there are 4 different tartans associated with the name Walker. And I think I rather like the second one. The bagpipes are a traditional Scottish instrument. Do you know of any other places where people play bagpipes? People have actually played bagpipes for millennia, for many, many years. They were first spread by the Celts, and later, as the British Empire expanded, it now means that you can find bagpipes in many parts of Europe, including Ireland, Brittany, Galicia and Asturias in Spain, for example, but even in some Middle Eastern countries as well. There are over 2,000 castles in Scotland, and this is Balmoral, which is another of the Queen's impressive properties in Scotland, and one that she loves. Balmoral has belonged to the British royal family since 1852, when it was bought by Prince Albert, the husband of Queen Victoria. The estate has grown over the years and includes grouse moors for shooting, forestry, and farmland. It also has deer and cattle and ponies in approximately 20,000 hectares. Now, they say that red hair and fair skin occurs especially in countries that are cloudy and dark, where people need a lighter skin to absorb more vitamin D from the sunlight. And the percentage of a population with red hair is normally about 2%. But in Scotland, over 13% of the population are redheads or carrot-topped. And this is the largest population of redheads in the world. Well, that's all for today. Many thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this Scottish cultural bite from Oxford University Press. Good luck with your English studies. Stay safe, and I hope to see you again. All the best.